Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to a special Geek First review. I am Travis Snell. Ooh, it's been a little while. It's not been a little while. It's just been since Terminator, but really, it's been strange. It's been a week since I've done an actual podcast, which is usually not the case. I get like a day or two. But to start off, we're gonna talk about Doctor Sleep. We're gonna do non-spoilers. We're gonna do a spoilers review. I'm gonna try and drink as much little as possible, because God forbid, when I did the Terminator review, I got a two-star review on Apple Podcasts because my throat was killing me. I was sick right before the stream, so that was great. I was alone on this cast, so I'm drinking much apple juice. And it's funny, the majority of our listeners are American, but as I was pointing out in that review, that the majority of our negative reviews are American. I think we have one negative review that's Canadian. I think it might still be like a 2.5 out of 5, or even just under the under the amount. But this one was just like, oh my goodness, I've listened to thousands and hours of podcasting, and I have not heard the amount of water drinking that I have in this half an hour podcast. I was sick. I was trying to fight through, trying to do for a review. Throat was hurting, so I apologize for, I don't know what his name was. It was like B38 blah, blah, blah. But it was like, oh my goodness. It's just like, you try. But I'm going to be talking about that. So I will try and keep the water breaks, everything to a minimum. And luckily now I have a bit more, I'd say, energy, because when I did that, I was tired. But I have to thank everyone before we get into the nitty-gritty of this review for the 24-hour stream. It was November 2nd. See, I'm already starting to promote already, even though it's over. We did not hit our goal, unfortunately, so that is something that next year I'm going to be after and looking for. But the best thing is we raised $1,200, and I guess someone donated this past week, so thank you whoever that was. It was anonymous. We raised $1,257, so we were just under $250 away from our goal. So two things that I kind of hang my hat on, at least, is one, it's the biggest amount we've ever raised. Before, the biggest amount was $1,025. So that's great. We didn't hit our goal, but we beat our last year's record, and we got close. We really got close. And then also, I just got email from Extra Life. You might have, if you donated, make sure you look into it. But they had like tons of problems that day, and there's people that messaged me like, "Hey, I'm trying to donate. I want to send in. I couldn't. Oh, could I go to Facebook? Oh, I don't have a Facebook. Lots of people don't have Facebook. So that's one thing that sucks, that kind of happened. So I don't know if there were people that did donate. Well, the people that did donate, I thank you very much, because yeah, we did not hit our goal. That's a little bit of a bummer, but still, we raised $1,200. It's pretty crazy. Okay, just checking, because I got a strange text there, but luckily everything's safe. But thank you to everyone that donated, because yeah, we didn't hit it, but that's still a lot of money, especially for just this year was just 4 people. We had Connor and Jessica and Clinton come over, but for the majority, it was just us 4 people. And we're just a little podcast based in Kelowna, BC. So that means a lot to us. So I'm not necessarily bummed about not hitting the goal. I'm always bummed to myself. I'm like, oh, I feel like I should have done more, could have done more. But I promoted the hell out of it. That's why this is like the biggest brain break I've gotten from. I'm taking a break. All podcast stuff, like I need some room to breathe. Play Luigi's Mansion, because then after this is Death Stranding coming up. We got a review. After that, Jedi Fallen Order, and then next week Mandalorian. If you've not heard, we're reviewing every single episode of Mandalorian. It'll either be that night or the day after, depending on when we can all get together to watch it. But it'll be hopefully within the 48 hours. God forbid, massive snowstorm or something. So, but thank you again for everyone that donated. And if you did try to donate and it didn't go through, thank you anyways. And if you didn't, do it next year, because like I said, I did get some people messaging me saying that, and that sucks. You could still donate. You could still hit our goal, and that would be great. But you can always donate to them. So thank you very much for the support. Thank you for everyone that tuned in. It's definitely the stream that we've gotten the most feedback as far as like, hey, I really enjoy it, really liked it. So I appreciate that. Everyone works really hard. I planned a lot of stuff. It's going to be tough. I always think about this. What we're going to do next year. Big congrats to Dylan Musk. He's the new Geek vs. Gauntlet champion. Big non-congratulations to me. I lost everything. I lost my team title. I lost the sports title match. I finished last in the tournament. Two things. One, I don't play as much video games. And that's first. And second, I'm going to chalk it up to, man, I was dead tired that week. It's definitely the stream that I was the most tired for. I think I slept for almost 3 hours, and I hate doing that in the streams, but I was just like, I need it. Like, the stream's done, or like everyone's set up, people are sitting here playing games, like, I need a break, because the past 2 weeks, I was getting hammered, like a nail, just boom, boom, boom. You know what else was getting hammered? I have no good transition. You know what else what I was excited me? This was exciting. My first podcast really back. This is what I feel. I'm rejuvenated, had some breaks, tons of good stuff coming up, is Doctor Sleep. Just go back, subscribe, and go, you know what, if you don't like, maybe you're thinking, hey, he's not drinking enough. go give me that 2-star review. We're trying to get to 200. None of it matters. Just get us to those 200. That hits our next milestone. So if you want to give us those 1-star, go ahead. But make it a good reason. I understood a little bit. Oh, also the guy said I was chemically influenced. I am straight edge. I've never had a drink, a smoke, or any sort of drug substance in my life. So it's always fun. I get that a lot. Sometimes I got someone on the reviewers call me a frat boy. It's like, I don't go to college. I'm not a frat boy. I don't play sports. So it's I guess that's what I portray. And I'm sorry for those people that dislike me. But for you that like me, I applaud you and I thank you for sticking with me all the time. So Dr. Sleep, like I said, give us a review. Apple Podcasts, written one. And then check out everything else. Subscribe. You heard all that stuff coming up. There's great stuff in the past. We got lots of good stuff coming up. 4 plays over? I think so. So, non-spoilers, and then I'll give you the 3, 2, 1 where we're going to talk about the nitty-gritty. And I actually have stuff to say. There's sometimes with these movies I've done alone, it's like, oh, yeah, I got a little here saying spoilers. Spoilers. Ooh, there's some juicy stuff in here. So, just a quick overall of Shining, Stephen King, Kubrick, the whole Mike Flanagan, the whole shebang, and then we'll get into the movie here. Because there's lots I can say non-spoilers, but the spoilers is definitely one you want to stick around for, and this is one I think you should definitely go see. I don't think you should go spoiled. I don't think there's anything majorly shocking like an end game where it's like you can't, but it's like there's some really fun, I would say, moments, reveals, and even fan service that I wouldn't have wanted to be spoiled, and I'm happy they weren't because that does happen quite a bit. So it's tough to think where, like, The Shining, Kubrick. I don't know where to start, and I don't really remember the first time I saw The Shining. I feel like it was on TV somewhere, and it was just on there, and then I saw Jack Nicholson. Oh no, you know what I remember? It was definitely rented. It was like Blockbuster, and I showed it to my auntie. I saw tons of horror movies through her. I remember one night we rented the entire Nightmare through Elm Street. Nightmare on Elm Street franchise and just watched it all, and it was so much fun. So shout out to that. That's definitely where I got that from. And I'm a big horror fan. That's one of my favorite genres. And I remember having that on Blockbuster and watching it, and just kind of, I don't know, it just kind of stuck with me, and it was haunting. And I just remember there's certain things. It became a movie where kids were starting to see it. The 2 movies that I felt were talked about the most, and this is so weird and out of context because we didn't grow up in these times, but was The Shining and was Pulp Fiction. Because when you're in that 8 to 12 area, that's when you're starting to see stuff you shouldn't see, and people are like, the 2 scenes I always heard about was like, oh, there's this scene in Pulp Fiction in the basement, which is the Gimp scene, and it's like, oh, when you get to that scene, you'll know. And as like little 12-year-old Travis watching it, you're like, whoa, I'm learning a lot in this moment. And the other one was always 237. It was always, there's a room, something weird happens in it. And yeah, that's all I'm going to say. And it was that thing where you'd watch with friends and like, oh yeah, they're going to see this, especially you're younger, like, oh, this hot naked chick, oh yeah, this is great. And then when it becomes and she's laughing, minor spoilers for The Shining bit. I just remember falling in love with it the first time I saw it. I think for multiple reasons. One, I just like the idea and the concept of a kind of haunted house, scary ghosts in a way, like, yeah, ghosts in general, but I love the haunted house tropes. I love everything about that. And that's what I'll talk about Mike Flanagan in a little bit. But it's just Luigi's Mansion. It's just something that I've been the guy that's like, I'd love to do a podcast in a supposed haunted mansion, stuff like that. There's just something about it because I think it's relatable where I've never dealt with a guy trying to suck my blood. I've never dealt with a guy turning into a werewolf. But I have dealt with, and I think we've all dealt with, is, you go get a drink, the lights are off, you're walking back to your room, and you hear a little creak. And that could be anything. That could be your own foot making that creak. But you stop, and you pause, and you just either got to tell yourself, oh, that's nothing, or you scurry away and run, and you got to get into the room. And I think that's why it's relatable, because just imagine walking this house and being watched, things being around you, things you can't explain, right? And it's always something bad, whether you're buried, it's built upon some grave, or there's been people killed in there. So, and I think haunted house is just like a vampire. There's only so much you can do, garlic, things like that, silver. Same with the werewolf, like, okay, the moon. Haunted house, you can kind of just have your way with. You can make any origin, any story, any type of ghost. They can be regular people, they can be monsters, whatever it is. So I just remember falling in love with it, and then I liked, and especially the other thing I will say is Jack Nicholson is one of my all-time favorite actors, and that was easily because I saw him as the Joker in Batman '89 as a young child, but ever since then, I've just been a fan. I've said this to my significant other, that the day Jack Nicholson passes, I'm going to be a very, very sad man, because it's just, he just looks like, if someone sat me down and was like, who do you want in your movie? You could pick anybody. I love like Fassbender, I love Mickelson, I love all these people, Christian Bale, but it's just like Jack Nicholson. There's just something about him, and him as Jack Torrance was one of my favorite roles, up there with the Joker. And that's, I don't think, a controversial thing to say. Many people throw him out there, but it's just, this to me is that was the perfect Jack Nicholson, where he played a little friendly, a little kooky, a little aggressive, and then a little really wacko, losing his mind, where other performances, maybe they lean too much on other things. That was a perfect one. Kubrick, one of my favorite directors. What can you say? And I'm going to not ramble on about him because it's not a Kubrick or Just Shining podcast, but just a phenomenal director. There's no, people could come to me and say, I think he's the greatest director of all time, and I can't say you're wrong. He's definitely in my top 5, top 10, but there's so many arguments make that he is the greatest filmmaker of all time. You look at his catalog and the differences in it, and lots of them are some of my favorite films. So, but this one is my favorite. Like, I think lots of people almost view this as one of his overrated one, but it just kind of hit me at the right time, and it hit the Travis chord. So, love Kubrick, love Shining, love Jack Nicholson. So with this movie, I remember, I guess where it really starts is I remember when they were talking about, hey, Stephen King's writing a sequel to the book, and this is where, no pun intended, don't judge a book by its cover. I remember hearing the pitch of the book, and this is not going to be any spoilers. This is going to be, if you've seen the trailer, then you know what I'm about to say. If not, then I don't know why you're listening to this review. Go see the movie. It's about Danny Torrance growing up, dealing with the kind of a PTSD, after effects of The Shining, trying to get his life together, and also this group of, maybe magical, mystical people that are hunting down people to shine and taking their energy. I love Stephen King. I love many of his things. Like, you know what Rose Red is? Probably not, but I love the fuck out of that TV series. I love Stephen King, but I think he's even admitted, look at it, chapter 2, like, oh, the endings aren't even great, my endings aren't great. I think he could admit as well there's some stories that don't hold up, or some stories that sometimes he goes, I think all directors that have a really unique style, we talked about this on Tarantino Retro, and sometimes I always say go too Tarantino, to the fact where it's just like, it's maybe too over the top, or just too in your face. And Stephen King, I think, can do that a lot, where he goes too weird, and just he sometimes can bouncing in a perfect realm of reality, but then he just completely throws a bucket of unbelievability on it. And that's what I thought when I heard the plot of Dr. Sleep was, and I wasn't really interested. I've read The Shining a long time ago. I guess I should say that I actually like the movie better. I understand Stephen King's problems with it, especially, I'm not going to say anything if he's right or wrong. He's a creator, but I just remember when I read the book, I saw the movie first, so that could be my bias, but I've had that happen before, where I saw the movie, read the book, and go, oh, the book was much better. The Shining, I get what some of his problems are, but I prefer the movie version. And with Stephen King, I was always wondering with Dr. Sleep, was this going to be his way of like taking back The Shining, because it's just got so defined by that movie. And then that book comes out. That book comes out, and then they say they're making a movie with Ewan McGregor and Mike Flanagan, who Mike Flanagan I had liked up to that point, but then after because there's like Haunting on Hill House. Is it Haunted on Hill House? But whatever it is, Hill House, the Netflix series, in this decade, one of the best single season shows ever. Maybe the best. I don't know, because I'd have to look at the time when Breaking Bad's come out and everything like that, but it is a beast of a show and fantastic. I never got to review it. Maybe I'll talk about the end of the decade. We're going to do some podcasts. But the character development, the scares, and the world building done that show are unbelievable. So I felt confident then, but then I started to feel a little, not uneasy, but less interested when the press releases came out. I remember a lot of them being like, this is a sequel to the book, not the movie. This is a sequel to The Shining, Stephen King's The Shining, not Stanley Kubrick's The Shining, and I was like, okay, and especially I was going to always see this movie because Shining is one of my favorite horror movies. It's kind of tied with Nightmare on Elm Street. I was always going to see this movie, but it was always the lack of interest. And I went, okay, not exactly a sequel to the version I like, but I'll still check it out. I love Ewan, Rebecca Ferguson, and then Mike Flanagan. And then that teaser came out where they're using lots of shots of the OG movie. They're using that fantastic, ominous score. And then I was locked in. And then as the teasers kept going and going, I was really locked in. And then I had heard word that it's kind of a mix of the two. And I was even more so locked in. So because at one point I was like, I don't know if I'm going to see this. But even at this week, I was like, I got to see this fucking movie. It's the only reason I almost wasn't going to see it is just because I'm so busy. I was like, I got to see it. Especially my hype was going up. And then it's just a sequel to one of my favorite stories. So, what did I think about Doctor Sleep? 2019's Doctor Sleep. I love this movie. I really, really do. I don't know where to go without spoiling anything. Let's talk about performances first. Ewan McGregor, a great Danny Torrance in a way that he kind of not in the, and this is not any spoilers. It felt like his own, but then it felt like it almost channeled a version of a Jack Torrance, so I liked that. Rebecca Ferguson, she's great. Mission Impossible, this might be my favorite role she's ever done. She is a great, cunning, smart, sexy villain in this, but also just so scary and so intimidating and disturbing at times. She is a villain that, I don't think that's a spoiler. Sorry if it is, but she's a villain that is multi-layered. Her goal is pretty, I would say, self-explanatory as far as when you meet the character. It's pretty simple, but what she brings, whether that was the writing or her, I'm going to lean more to her, or a combination. I'm going to lean to the writing could have been great, but Rebecca Ferguson just brought this je ne sais quoi that I don't know if many other actresses could, and she's just somebody that every time I see her, she's getting minus Men in Black. Other than that, she's getting better and better, and man, she is. I wouldn't be surprised in the next 10 years if she gets an Oscar on her mantle for something else. I think right now she's having fun doing some franchise movies, and hopefully, for my personal taste, she ends up in a Marvel or DC movie. But fantastic as Rose the Hat. Really enjoyed it. She carried the movie because sometimes she has a lot of screen time, and as a villain, you got to bring it, and sometimes that can be a slog. And I was interested as much as Danny's story, or, oh man, I got to look up the character's name. Because there is, and you've seen from the trailers, that there's a little girl with The Shining, and Danny obviously has The Shining as well. And it's kind of, they got to meet up and maybe share some experiences. Man, I had it open. I'm so mad at myself. I literally had the IMDb page open just because I always like to refer to it. And I remember having it open just because I was looking at the ads and I saw Charlie's Angels, and I was like, right, that movie's coming out soon, and it's going to bomb big time, which sucks because I love that cast that they got going on. So let's see here. Doctor Sleep. What is the name of this? I'll get the name of the actress, too, because I don't know her. Kaylee Curran. She played Abra. How the fuck did I forget Abra? They make such a big deal of it in the movie. We'll get to that later. She was fantastic. This is not much of a surprise because we're just in this renaissance, or maybe the golden age of child acting. Child actors from 8 to like 14 have been taking steroids, and they're in their prime. No longer do you got to put up with the child performance or have to just kind of sit through this painful wooden acting. She joins this the class of cast of, like, you look at the kids in Stranger Things, the kids in It. What is her name now? Daphne Keane from Logan. She's in this class where now I will watch her in anything, or at least when she gets cast, go, this is great. She was fantastic in this. And she really, there's some dramatic scenes in this, and she really held her own. This, to me, was a perfect mix of, I've not read Dr. Sleep, but it did, and I'd heard this before, kind of, because I think this movie screened a while back ago, of it's a great mix between Kubrick and King. And it does feel like, I would say it is more King-ish. It is where The Shining is a very, to me, this is a basic movie, but The Shining is much more, it's a family, they get put in a haunted, like, there might be a haunted hotel, something's not right with this place, and the mystery kind of unfolds, right? Or not even a mystery, but just bad things start to happen. And you learn a little kind of, fantasy horror with Danny and The Shining and Scatman Crothers and all that stuff. But really, other than Danny potentially being a little supernatural, which is a big part, but still the bigger part is Jack Torrance, it's, to me, a pretty simple story. It's what Kubrick brings his, special stew to it, is what makes it special. This is much more out there. This is much more Stephen King weirdy, but it's done right. I don't know how the book is, so if you are wondering, once again, any comparison to that, I can't compare that. I'm just comparing off what I'd heard, and that doesn't interest me because that just sounded a little out there and a little too far. But the execution of the world between what we're doing with Dan, what we're doing with Abra, and then what we're doing with Rose the Hat and all her kind of minions and some magical stuff. It gets weird, but it still feels grounded. It still feels believable, and it feels right. It feels like a natural progression. It doesn't, because that was always my thing of, to me, The Shining was just, Scatman Crothers and Danny, and that, not that's it, but it's just like, it was so self-contained and simple, where this, when I heard that pitch, it's like, there's a whole world of Shinings, and now there's a cult that's after him. It's like, okay, I get where we're going here for King, but they make it work. Like I said, I think the subtlety of it, whether that was a directing choice or writing choice or both, really it's loud when it needs to be, but it is this great cult. They do work in the shadows, and it works in a believable way, which I like, with a concept that could be quite out there. Mike Flanagan does a great job of blending the two worlds. Like I said, I think it is more King, but the Kubrick stuff that I love, I really enjoyed. I think there are times where I wouldn't be against. The best way I could say this is, if you watch the Halloween remake, there's a lot of kind of alluding to the original. This film does that a lot. I thought it was just the right amount. Maybe sometimes near the end, it almost was close to being a tad overboard, but it didn't get there. But I could see people throwing that and go, there's like some shots that are just shot for shot. But I liked it because for a while it's sprinkled in there, and then as the movie goes on, it gets more and more kind of drenched in more kind of Kubrick Shining, and I liked that. I could see some people kind of go, it's kind of just a cheap trick or a gimmick or just look at the shiny thing here, but no pun intended. But it worked for me, especially some of the surprises they did. If you've seen the movie, really worked for me. I'll talk about in spoilers. And yeah, I was surprised the way the movie start, and especially once again, as somebody that didn't read the book, how the story was paced and told, and the time it was told in really caught me off guard in a good way. I was getting answers to questions I didn't think I needed or wanted or didn't even think about. I think everyone was really good in here. I don't have any really major cons. My only thing is, I think at the beginning, the first act, there is a few things you could have cut out. They introduce one particular character that intertwines with the bad guys. Not a big spoiler. It happens very early on. And I think that story, it's in that awkward spot of, you either got to flesh it out more, but then you add more screen time, or you just kind of have to cut back on it. To me, I think you had to just cut back on it. I liked the people involved and the actress, but I don't think it served much of a purpose, and it added maybe about 5-10 minutes, which is not a lot, but it's a 2.5 hour movie. It's a bit longer. So, and I always say that either cut it or add it with something else I would rather see. And I think at the beginning, there were a few things with the evil cult that it did work, because it gave you context of, like, this is what these people do, but it's pretty simple to figure out, and I'll stress upon that more in spoilers. Score is fantastic. You got shades of the Shining Kubrick score, but then it kind of makes its own, so that's nice. Cinematography, really cool. There's some fun stuff in here, some fun shots, especially, I'd say, the third half. There's there is some recreating throughout the movie of the Shining stuff, which I liked, but it's done. They have a lot of that, but they put their new spin on it. There's one shot in particular, which is an iconic shot from The Shining, but the way they did it, it is almost shot for shot, but they take their own little tone to, one, go, okay, obviously this is my movie, it's a new movie, but two, it's a different era. There's new stuff going on. It's, scarier. It's not scary, but it's the presence of certain things are looming now because you've grown up and you've gone past it. And the other I don't know. I don't know if I want to talk about this, but I'll say this in the most non-spoiler way, especially as somebody, and I think this is what King wanted a little bit more from the Kubrick movie, which I don't know how much it got into that, because Danny and Jack have a very, very strained relationship already, because he's maybe he has abused them, but they don't know if that's a drinking, blah, blah, blah. I think even back then, but then as this movie too tackles again, as far as people's relationships with kids, whether it's just a uncle nephew niece sort of thing, whether you're just a guardian to a kid or a father son, father daughter, mother daughter, all the combinations you can think. There is a theme in the first one, and I think this one as well, and in the book, as far as legacy and kind of entrapments and being locked up by the history of the don't let history repeat itself, or paying for the father's sins in a way. And I think we all have that, and especially for me, this is the first time really, and I watched Shining again, watching it as a father was, it's different, because there's things about, and I think we all feel that, if I'm speaking just to the people that have kids out there, and if you don't, I think you might feel this way eventually, unless you're Mr. or Mrs. Perfect, and good for you. But I think what it showcases a little bit, and that's what I'll talk about in spoilers, for, I would say, both our main characters, which would be Dan, and then which would be Abra, the relationship with parents, but then also just the worry of passing things on to someone that you don't want. That's always something I worry about with my kids. It's like, nothing that I have hugely. I don't have no drug addiction or anything like that, but I think we all have things that we wish we could do better or be better or improve upon ourselves, and I try to do that so I could not have my child, whether it's the two children I have now or any future ones, take that. I want them just to have the good in me. I don't want them to have the bad in me. And I really felt the weight of that in this movie, and especially maybe that's just because that's something that's important to me, but they hit the right chords. It's not the main focus of the movie, but it is sprinkled throughout. There's a big thing, and this is not even a spoiler, the presence of what happened in The Shining, and I would say Jack Torrance, is always looming. It feels like there is a shadow. In this movie, when it's like, in any haunted house movie where it's like, oh, there's ghosts around, it always feels like Jack's around. Not even if they're alluding to him. It's just, especially with Dan Torrance's journey, it has a lot to do with that. And again, that played really well for me. And I think they, for the amount of time they spent with it, they really did a good job in 2.5 hours. And like I said, I like those. I like when it's done well. The questioning upon or examining of the, just whatever sort of relationship you have with someone older or younger, that dynamic and the push and pull, you want to let them in, but not too far in, you want to, caution them about bad things, but you don't want to caution them so much that they'll, kind of rebel. It's a push and pull, and I've not really learned it that much because my daughter's still 2, so I don't got to really worry about that. But I know for my parents, especially I'm someone that has a close relationship with his father, you especially now, and this movie has a lot to do. This is my last point, I think, and then I'll get into spoilers. I'm going to take 3 ABB. I'm going to take a quick water break in between the non-spoilers and spoilers. It has a lot to do with, like I said, the sins of the father and having to do with the past and having to do with, I don't want to become that person, even though I very much am. And that's the thing where I'm not, luckily I don't think I've taken any of my dad's traits. I've taken, or not bad ones. I have taken like bad dad jokes, and I can't sing to songs, and I just sing really high pitched. So dad's given me some stuff, but as I get older, I do things, and even like my mother as well, I do this, and I go, my dad used to do that, or my mom does that, and that annoyed me, or that was just a thing they did. Now it's something I do. Everybody I see, I'm always like, howdy. I don't know why my dad said howdy. Maybe his dad did. I'm not from the South. I'm not a cowboy, but he just did it, and it got pounded in me, like I was talking about that nail earlier, of just, he said howdy all the time, and now I always say howdy. And there's just different things, the way I look upon life, and that has a big theme in this as well, especially for Dan, as far as looking at the past and now looking at himself and being that, okay, especially we know you want to take things from your parents, the good, the bad, the ugly, but with Jack Torrance, there's not much in those last few days you want to take, and that's obviously his biggest worry. One of his biggest worries is not becoming a psychopath running through a hotel with an axe trying to murder your wife and child, so ghosts or not. So yeah, I'm trying to think. I think I would. You could recommend this too, because I think The Shining is more in the back half where it really fits to have seen it. But I think you could go watch this if you want to go see a good scary movie. If you've not seen it, I think you could go watch this and be clear. They give you enough backstory. They give you enough, and especially I think everyone's kind of heard The Shining, but they give you enough to go on and enough explanations from other characters and maybe some kind of alluding to what's happened in the past that you could be caught up. But obviously, I'd always say watch The Shining first and go into it. It is a mix of King and Kubrick, but I would say, again, it's more King. But you got some Kubrick love in there, so that's really good. What else? So, yeah, I would recommend it to almost anybody. I don't think it is slower at times. It's 2.5 hours, but I like slow movies when they're done well, and this to me was done very well. But I loved this movie. This is a movie that I saw, and then the second it was over, I was like, I can't wait to watch that again. I can't wait to put this as a Halloween movie. I can't wait to watch this literally back to back with The Shining. I can't wait to have it just around in my life, because it's a solid, it's more than a solid. It's a great follow-up, but it's something that feels fulfilling and not, they really dropped the ball there. Oh, this was just a cash in. All movies are cash grabs, but it's all about the passion they put in it. And it felt like the passion was here, and they want to make a great companion piece to The Shining, which they did. So I'm going to take this quick water break. I'm going to give you the 3, 2, 1. So if you've not seen it, this is your time to tune out. If you don't want to hear anything, you haven't seen the movie, come back. I'll be here. This review will be here. It'll be all good stuff. So 3, 2, 1. So, spoilers. So, I'm going to start with the obvious. Let's talk about Jack Torrance. So Jack Torrance is in this. What time am I doing here? Okay, Jack Torrance is in this movie, I was wondering because the second we see Shelley Duvall look alike, who she didn't look that much like, but let's see, am I gonna be able to pull up her name here? I don't know if they have. They don't have her listed where I am, but either way, the actress they got did a really good job of. Oh, they did a really good job. That was my neck. Did you hear that, ladies and gentlemen? It was a point where I was looking at the screen and I moved it and it just felt like my entire head locked. So I'm sorry I had to do that on air. She did a really good job. She sounded like her. She's not in the movie that much. I've seen her in other things that's bugging me. I'll maybe look at it by the end of the review. But so right then I go, okay, we're not going to get Jack Nicholson. And I think I'd heard already that he had approached him to maybe cameo and whatnot. And especially with the de-aging, I thought it was a surefire bet, at least to ask or whatnot. But it's just tough because who do you else get in that role? But then also I thought, do you not go that way? At first I didn't think you went that way because it's the sequel to The Shining. You know, it's not Kubrick Shining, it's The Shining. So I didn't think we were going to get it. One, before we get into Jack, I loved the way the movie started. I did not think it was going to go that way as far as, one, I love the introduction of Rose's hat, sets your villain, sets up what they're doing. And especially then, that's why I will talk about after some cons I had with them continuing to set them up. You get what they're doing, and then you meet Danny. But then you meet Danny way, way in the past. We go right back to him kind of doing identical shots to Shining of Danny riding his bike throughout the hotel and everything like that. And then we get him stopping at room 237, and we get this great kind of back and forth as far as he wakes up. And then in his house, you can see that his mom is like, you haven't talked since the incident. And what they're setting up is these ghosts. It's kind of the house is haunted, but now because he has the Shining, it is latched on to him. He's taken pieces of it from him. And Scatman Crothers, he teaches, who again is in this. No, he's not in this movie, but they have an actor playing that role, and very well done. He was the best out of them, I think. But great job, voice, look, everything like that was believable, especially in an age of. It's weird to see an actor not looking glossy or their eyes not looking glossy. You always expect to see the actor and look for the de-aging. Okay, how'd they do this time? What did they fix up? Where this is like they got, for 3 different roles, they got different actors, which obviously one's passed away, one's retired from acting, and Shelley Duvall, unfortunately, is very sick. Shout out to her. Lots of flack she went through her career, which is really sad the way it ended, but she was a great actress back in the day, so that's always a sad thing to think about, so shout out to her. They recasted all these roles, so it catches you off guard now. The way the de-aging used to catch you off guard, it's like, oh, that's Michael Douglas, is it? Or what's going on? Is that makeup? No, I can't be makeup. It's like, oh, this is not a de-aged person. It's not, Shelley Duvall look like. We're not getting the James Dean situation where they're bringing him back from the dead. So everyone was well casted. I love as far as the setup of he's not talking. He's brought stuff home with them. He gets told by Scatman Crothers to put things in a box, and he shows them this box. Says, you got to create a box, and you got to put all your fears in there and everything like that, because obviously he's seeing lots of stuff. So I was expecting a flashback here or there, but I was not expecting. I think we got about over 5 minutes, maybe is 10 too much, but 5-10 minutes of young Danny Torrance, which I really appreciate, because it was that pickup of what did happen right after The Shining, because that's scary thing. Lots of ghosts, lots of blood, dead kids. Your dad is dead. He tried to kill you. What's going on? And I like that. I think it still could have worked if him referring to what happened, but I think us actually seeing it worked, and I think also them setting up the ghosts kind of coming with him was a good call. And then we'll jump all the way to the end just for this conversation now, because I'm a big Jack Torrance fan, like I said before. Love Jack Nicholson in that role. I can't remember that guy's name. Let's hit the IMDb right now as I'm talking. But that guy is used. I knew he was probably going to be in this movie. I think they had already announced it, but Mike Flanagan loves using the same actors. He used them a lot in Gerald's Game. He used them a lot in. He did one other before House on Haunted Hill. What was it? It was another one with. I'm going to quickly look up here. But he uses this guy in a lot. The Haunting of Hill House. That's the actual name. Hush is a good one. And then what was the other one he did? Midnight Mass, Gerald's Game. No, there was another one. I thought there was one I saw. Oculus, Hush. I guess those were just the ones. But it's this guy he always uses quite a bit. He was the dad in Haunting of Hill House. I'm going to be getting it. And oh my goodness, why did I forget Henry Thomas, the E.T. kid? My God. That's so annoying when that happens. That's what happens when you record your, reviews late at night after you see a movie. So Henry Thomas is and I remember he was cast, and no one's seen him, and there was a lot of speculation. Is he Jack Torrance? Because we had heard Jack Nicholson's not in it, blah, 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 and I didn't really see it. And then there's this a fantastic scene, and that's where I understand some people might go the last half an hour, it's way too Shining. It's a lot of alluding, it's a lot of nostalgia, and I get that. I think they were almost close to a point where, and that's where I worked for me, but it was teetering on like, okay, we're getting too close, so you're just remaking the end of the movie, and you're just doing lots of fan service. But I still love it, and that's why some fan service works and some doesn't. But for me, yeah, the fan service were I'm mad we didn't get no blowjob bear. Come on, one of the greatest shots in film history. But the shots of certain characters, whether it's Danny or Abra, running throughout the house and seeing stuff, and seeing the girl, seeing the bathroom again. It's like, okay, I understand people could maybe dislike those ones. I get that. The Lloyd as Jack Torrance was a brilliant, like a stroke of brilliance, because that to me is the ultimate. You're getting character development with Danny talking to his dad / a bartender because he's been sober for 8 years. So there's that, that double. We'll get into it. There's a lot of meaning behind that. Take your medicine, Danny. And then you got, oh man, what was I going to say? Oh, then you just got the still nostalgia. You got Jack Torrance there. You got him looking very much like Jack Nicholson. So big shout to them because, yeah, you can tell it's not Jack Nicholson. But as far as getting as close, giving the forehead, the hairline, the way he's dressed, especially later on they do the shots of him from behind and even looking in the front doing that wretched walk with the axe. They did a really good job. So you got the nostalgia in there. And then 3, you got the creepy, what the fuck is going on Shining moment where it's like, he's not Jack anymore. And that's what I love about the ending of The Shining is that zoom out shot. It gives me chills right now. I got goosebumps of, there's this painting, and at the end of this movie, Jack's in that painting. And it's almost this thing of, people go, oh, was he always there? Was there a ghost before? Is it just, he's just that happy there at the house? There's all these theories, right? Go watch, there's a great documentary, 237, and it just breaks down all these, oh, did it fake the moon landing? Stanley Kubrick was his apology for that. Go watch that documentary. It's great. But so it's this thing of, to me, it was like, okay, he's sucked in the house because he just had this aura about him that he would be accepted in this location. But now, and I guess it is because of Danny, but at first when you see it, you're like, why is he Lloyd? Why is he the bartender and he's reciting lines that Lloyd did? But it's almost in this way that he is, or the house is disguised, like he's disguising the house. Whoever they see as Lloyd could be anybody. And that's the thing that's projecting where Danny is seeing his dad as Lloyd, the bartender. So it's not coming off as right away like, you're my dad. And he's like, yeah, I'm your dad. Like, you got to trust me. It's not, Danny can't be on the defense right away because this guy is going like, no, I'm not your dad. I'm Lloyd. I'm the bartender. And Danny's like, I'm pretty sure you're my dad as it continues going that conversation. But then that double entendre of, okay, weirdness that it's his dad, and then he's giving the drink, telling him he should drink, take his medicine. This is what's going to help you. This is warm. This will get you through the night. What's about to happen to you? This will help. So you got this thing of, yeah, it's just a bartender, but then it's your dad looking back at you, and it's your dad who had these alcohol problems, had obviously problems near the end of The Shining. And there's just this great back and forth. And when he confronts him, like, no, I'm not your dad, and I'm Lloyd. He just keeps saying that, and it's this way of, like, either the house is projecting this, or you can almost see this as this way of Jack, the character, which I don't think was because it's always like a ghost, but Jack, the character, pretending he is Lloyd, and he's this bartender, and he just wants his son to drink and be like him and get low like him, and he doesn't. I love that back and forth because many times, especially at one point when Abra gets kidnapped and he goes to drink and he, like, lifts the ball, I'm like, oh, no, he's going to get drunk, and they did some fun fake-outs that way, but really, really love that scene because I was worried anytime you're, classic, Jack to Heath Ledger thing of like, oh, you're going to get someone in there, and I think it was done right. He had little shades of Jack Nicholson in his voice and his kind of stature, but he still made it his own, so it was like this nice kind of homage to it, feeling like something fresh. But then it was small. It wasn't overdone, and he said some things like, oh, you got to work hard for your family. Like, he had that cadence that Jack has, but they didn't make him do the losing his mind, because you can't top Jack Nicholson. There's many actors that can play great and crazy, I get that, but Jack Nicholson at that time in that role, you don't even want to try and touch that. It's a way I always refer to Heath Ledger in his last interviews as Heath Ledger, but one of his last interviews, someone interview asked him about, like, how do you feel about taking the Joker on with, after Jack, and he goes, oh, well, I don't really, like, I'm paraphrasing, I don't really look at it that way because if Tim Burton called me and said, I need you to play the Joker that Jack Nicholson played, he said, I wouldn't do it because I can't hit those beats. I can't do that. Where Nolan was like, I want to do this, and we'll do this, and we'll change it up. So that's where it's great. Like, kudos to Henry Thomas, who I think found a right balance of making his own, but then paying tribute to Jack Nicholson. And obviously, I think it worked that he wasn't in it that much. If he was in it a little bit more, that could have hurt, but I think it was just the right amount of Jack Torrance. Where should we go next? Okay, I'll talk about my cons, so I don't forget about it. Like I said, I could see someone make the case, and maybe on a second time, the stuff at the end, The Shining. Lots of you see the twins, you see the red elevator, everything like that. But to me, it just kind of felt like that being home, like when Rose looks and she sees the bloody elevator and she just kind of smiles. And I like seeing, one, Danny grown up being there, but two, just other characters interacting with the house and seeing what they do. Obviously, you see Abra reacts very, very differently. She's been a lot more in tune with her shine than Danny was there. But as far as just like interacting with the woman from 237 and the way she shuts down Danny when he gets taken over, it's different than how Danny had it figured out, because she had some help a lot more early on. So I liked all that. The cons was, so at the beginning we meet the Rose Hat, great scene with that little girl. To me, the first scene really establishes that this kid has a shine. They're magic. There's something special, and this cult is out to get them. We didn't need much more. They explain that a little bit, but then we get this weird, to me, subplot, which I still enjoyed because I like seeing Rebecca Ferguson as much as possible in the role. So it was fun with me. But them recruiting, I don't remember her name, but she's the blonde, curly hair one. She's 15. If you're watching along, you didn't see it. She is taking, and this is, I don't know, so she is taking down pedophiles. She's fights this guy to theater, and he's like, oh, I want to get out of here. Oh, no, I want to watch the movie. And then she hits him with some sort of needle, paralyzes him for a second, not like permanently, and then like puts these Viper mics in his cheek, and she gives some speech about, you're always trying to pick up these girls, blah, blah, blah. And now you're always going to remember when you see this mark that, you could lose your wallet and tell your wife, oh, I just lost my wallet. But this, what are you going to tell your wife? So this setup of, she's rebellious, she has this attitude, and then the cult takes her in, and they do this whole speech about how you can live, many, many years, and blah, blah, blah. And I kind of, and that's why maybe I missed it, but I don't know if they were insinuating that she was special or not, but they do quite a bit of backstory for this girl who gets brought into the group, and then after that, she's just kind of a glorified better goon, like she helps Danny's friend, like one of her powers or whatnot, she can make people do what they say, so she tells Danny to sleep, and then he sleeps, and tells one guy to like shoot himself, and he shoots himself. So that's, she has this power of speech, but that's where it just gets regressed to, you didn't need that. You could have gave her one or two scenes smartly of just establishing, oh, she is a more powerful one, but the whole subplot of recruiting her and taking her to the a certain place and all the stuff, giving her the rules, converting her over as far as into like some sort of cult-like shining eating demon, it wasn't needed, because I was like, okay, where are we going with this? But then, and even then, she dies right in the middle of the movie. She's not even like the second boss. It was a strange choice. I think they were trying to do it to show just more about the cult and their lifestyle and what they do, but I don't think it informed us any more on them. So yeah, that was a con for me. The shot I was talking about that I really liked, I guess I'll shout out some of those, is one, obviously at the end they do the classic, the helicopter going to the overlook, and they start with the mountains, and you're on like a Dutch angle and you're turning and the camera's turning, but this time it was like pitch black out and it was snowing. So that's where, yeah, it was most of the same shot, but they took their own spin on it, and I really like that to just show that, it's evolved or it's gone darker, because he says that about the hotel, that it's just been left there to rot. And I love that explanation. It's not dormant. It's like it's rotting away, because it's just obviously this very terribly infested place. So I thought the opening shot was kind of like that. Some of the other tributes I liked was when Dan, he is, if you are watching on, but he is an alcoholic, which I really enjoyed that. And I think that's probably what Stephen King liked, because he was a little mad at the movie that the first one, that it really didn't play up the alcoholism too much, which I understand. I think they played up just the right amount, but I think you could have done more, or at least I don't think that, but I think I can see from his perspective how you could have done more, because that is a bigger part in the book, and if you watch the TV miniseries, which I'm not a fan of, it's in there. Shout out to Steven Weber, I think his name is, Wings, and what else was he on? What did I like him in? Brothers and Sisters, good actor. So there's a moment where Dan, so we meet him, he's alcoholic, he gets through it, he meets his good neighbor, cleans him up, just kind of gives him a break, right? He's having a tough time, he's fighting these demons, he has PTS from his dad, he is an alcoholic like his dad, so again, sins of the father, that storyline that I was talking about, non-spoilers. Meets his friend, cleans him up, gives him a chance, gives him a job, gives him a place to live, and then we jump 8 years later, which I was not expecting. That was a big jump when I saw it. I was like, man, what is this, Fan Four stick? But they made it work, and I think it was the appropriate amount of time for all the characters. You see Danny clean up, you see Abra grow up, and then you also see that Rose and the Hat are still, and the cult are still chugging along, and they've not changed at all because they don't age if they keep eating, right? So that was a really good touch. But where was I going? The few shots. So anyway, so he at one point meets somebody for a job interview. I think that's what, because he meets that guy from Gerald's Game. He also likes using him a lot in the movies. But anyway, so there's a shot where they're interviewing and talking about, he told me about his watch. Like, there's something wrong with your watch. And then they do this sit down where it looks very, very much like where they interview Jack Torrance for the Overlook. It's the same, like, almost height of the roof, the colors, the shot, the exact, like, they go to Ewan McGregor, and he's sitting exactly like Jack Nicholson was. And it's great because he said that obviously Jack Nicholson's not in this movie, but he uses a lot of inspiration. To me, you could see that this is the docile, like, son of Jack Torrance who's trying to repair himself and not become Jack Torrance. So I think Ewan did a good job of, obviously you can't really portray what the kid did because it's such a very different role, but something new, but then kind of a great tribute to the old. And that's what I loved about this entire movie. I think they did a good job of mixing those well and never feeling too much of one or another. Like I said, the ending, some people might make the case that it was too much Shining, and I could understand it, but I found it was a good balance. There's one point where they kind of do a reverse where Danny, after Rose the Hat gets to the Overlook, because that's like a big trap. It's like Home Alone. They set her up like, okay, we're going to get her in this house because we'll have the advantage. She'll have no idea, and we got to wake this place up. That's what I love. At one point, they explain that he's just like a battery that just sent like 10,000 jolts to this house where it was already scary and haunted, but because he has these powers, it just made a evil, huge concoction of hauntedness going on because his Shining. So, Tony. At one point, like I was saying, Rose, the Hat gets up there, and he has the axe, which, again, a little shiny, but whatever, and they're walking up the stairs, and she's doing the whole Jack Torrance. She's not going crazy, but she's explaining her side of it, and she's walking up the stairs, and then what I was like, this is where I was going to roll my eyes, I'm not going to like this, because maybe we are getting too much into the Shining nostalgia. He goes to hit her, and he does slightly, but then she turns around, like cuts an artery and throws him down the stairs, and I go, well, that's not exactly what I was expecting. I was expecting for him to get hit or her to get hit, and then I'm gonna stumble back like Jack. So I like that. The scenes where this is where I love, because when she sees him the first time, like, oh, hi, handsome, and she finds out they do this great thing of, she thinks they're kind of mind finding Abra's mind, but it's actually Danny's mind, and she finds out that he has the shine. And her speech of just like, where have you been? Like, you're old, like, and then she starts talking about like, you're old and your shine can't be that good because it gets polluted and everything like that. And then like it sounds weird, but I think this was on purpose. She gets him down, and when you hurt people with the Shining or you're giving them mortal injuries, they start to breathe, and kind of the physical, like a physical form of the Shining comes out of their mouth. And the way she was, and they'll sniff it up or suck it up. The way she was doing that, to be honest, was very sexual. One, it was very hot, but just the way she would do it, and then it's just like she is like narrating how it feels, like, oh my god, like she's narrating how it feels, how it tastes, what it's been through, and she's like, and this is what I realized, she's seeing his entire life flash before her eyes because she's essentially sucking up his essence. And it's like some of the best scenes in movies, especially horror, are when you make something sexy and sexual and horror and disturbing at the same time, because it's just like the two parts of your brain that should never usually be working, other than some people, but even then, like people that like to be dominated, that's not a disturbing thing to them. They like that. You got to think of stuff that is very traumatic and stuff you don't like, and like a person getting hurt or murdered from you, and then someone acting very sexual and moaning and finding this very pleasurable. When those two things clash, man, do you feel uncomfortable. But that's fantastic. That's blowjob pair, like that's what The Shining should be. And that was Rebecca Ferguson and me just killing it, doing such a good job, because I've seen that done before, and they can be super cheesy and out there and lame, and it doesn't fit, or they kind of go one way or the other, or like I said, it just can be, it could be way too in your face. And that's one thing I think the biggest thing, the compliment I give this movie is subtlety. And not to take shots at any other movies this year, but I think this year with horror, when I think about some of the big ones like Midsommar and Us and It Chapter 2, I like all those movies, but I was very disappointed in one way or another in them. I didn't love any of them. I'm luckily that I love this movie, but I think the subtlety that they use in this movie really helped it. And that's not to say with the other ones they didn't, but sometimes I feel something about like It Chapter 2. There was a lack of subtlety in that movie. It was very, go back to our review. I'm not going to get into that, but you want to talk about something that's in your face and repetitive and doesn't have too much to say, so it's just going to go with the big scare or something like that. That's what It Chapter 2 is, which is unfortunate because It Chapter 1 is, in my opinion, not like that. Or at least it's done a lot more better. The subtlety that they use with the characters, with the stories, with the ghosts, with the threat, everything in between just blends very, very well for the most part. I think, I'm trying to think of any other cons, but I think that's what I got to applaud them is, and at the end, yeah, they have a little fun. They go a little Shining. They show you nostalgia. They show you Jack. They show you literally a shot of Wendy when the door's busted. She's holding the knife like Shelley Duvall. You know, even like Danny sticking his head through the door, which we've seen in the posters. I get it, but I think that's the payoff, and that's why it worked for me, because the rest of the movie, it's sprinkled in there, but they really hold back as much as possible. I feel like anytime there is a character that relates to Shining or a moment, it is to inform the plot, the story, or Danny, which I really appreciate until the end, which is a little bananas, but I liked going bananas like that. Anything else I want to say spoilers wise? I don't think I stressed enough, but Ab was great. I think they did a good job with her parents. I love the beginning when she's like bickering with this birthday hired magician. Like, I can do this. I have magic, and he's kind of playing along with it. And then one point, he just goes, he's like, "Oh, whatever. Sure you do. Yeah." And then they go in the house, and she's floating all these spoons up. Really well done, and it's done in a way that it felt like it meshed, because sometimes when you get these sequels, you can get new characters, and you go, I don't want to spend time with these guys. I want to spend time with the people I know and love. She fit right in. It didn't feel forced. It felt very natural. The way these characters intertwine was really well done. I loved all the jokes about, like, what are people going to say? Like, I'm a 40-year-old man sitting with a girl on the bench. Like, this does not look good. We should go somewhere else. And she'd be like, you're just going to say you're my uncle. And it's like, she's like, oh, you kind of are. You know, we both The Shining. We're both related in one way. She was very fun. She was, scared when she needed to be, but I feel like after that first kid gets killed and she faced off Rose, she's in like fuck it mode of like, I'm gonna do anything to stop these people, because she sees a kid in her dreams literally murdered. And one, I think it's because, yeah, she doesn't want to be that, but two, it's just these people have been doing this for decades and decades, hundreds of years, and no one stopped them. And that's why I like there's a certain point where it comes to, I'm fearful of my life in a sense, to nah, fuck it. We're going to kill these people. We're going to make a plan. And she's more the aggressor than Danny is, because Danny's like, you should hide. Don't approach them. Stay hidden. Don't use your powers. They already have an idea of who you are, so you want to tell your parents about this. You got to show them actually, which she does with her dad later. And she's the aggressor. Like, no, we got to take the fight to them. So I really liked that. And then I feel like they both get their moments. As far as the end, he takes out Rose the Hat, but then she saves him from... She saves him in a sense because he dies in the fire, but still, he went out on the way he wanted to. He wanted to take out that hotel, where before I'm sure he didn't want to kill Abra with the axe, right? So he got that. I'm trying to think if there's anything else to shout out. Great performances all around, whether it were the people in Rose the Hat's crew or other people. What's his name is in here? He's been in so much lately. I'm not going to find it, but he plays his friend Billy. Cliff Curtis. He was in here. I just feel like I've been seeing him a lot lately. And then the girl that played Snake by Andy was Emily Aylan Lind. I feel like I've seen her in something. If not, very good job. I think she's someone to look out for. Yeah, really enjoyed this movie. I think, again, it was a great follow-up. I don't want to say solid, but I guess the reason I keep going to solid is just because I always thought it might kind of not bomb, but it's just like it's The Shining. And is it Shining level? No, but it's... like I said, I almost feel like it's not meant to be, and that's not to be like, oh, it's not as good. So it's not meant to be like, oh, they tried to make a movie not as good. It's just the same way when people talk about Heath Ledger's Joker versus Joaquin Phoenix Joker. To me, they're both great. They're perfect performances. This is not a perfect movie. I've given you cons, but in the way of they both do something different. But that's the thing where they're so different, and it's so very different takes on the characters. They're very unique character takes where it's just like, for me, they're both performances are outstanding and I can't compare them that much. The only route I go, oh, I like Ledger because I like that version of the Joker a bit better, but I can't say people are wrong about liking Phoenix. And that's how this feels, where I don't think it's on that level where I don't think, oh, it's The Shining versus Dr. Sleep, but I think with Doctor Sleep, they were going for a very different movie. At the end, they give you a lot of that nostalgia, a lot of that, hey, you showed up for the Shining sequel, here it is. But even then, it feels sprinkled throughout. I feel like I am having a great journey with a new Danny Torrance, and he is evolving, and he is trying to get through what he did. You know, it doesn't feel disconnected. It doesn't feel like he took a backseat to Abra. It feels like they're equal. And that's why I like that. It still feels like, even if you take out that last thing, it felt like a Shining sequel. It feels a little different. It would have felt different with no House or no Overlook because House. With no Overlook, because then I could see some people being disappointed. I even be a little disappointed because it is about that. But if you take that out, it all still was working. Without, they do little tribute shots here and there, but the movie was working on its own, and that's to be applauded because, yeah, they didn't make the new Shining, but they made a damn good movie and a great companion piece. A movie, in my opinion, that I will want to watch with the sequel, or I want to watch the sequel of Shining. I want to watch it with The Shining. I want to make it a 2-night event now next Halloween when it comes out. Watch that, then watch that. Maybe the next night, I don't know. But to me, that is a lot better than so many sequels, especially we've talked about comedies, but even have horrors too sometimes as far as in the way of a reboot/remake. It's been so long and so many years, and we come back to a certain place, and Nightmare on Elm Street, Texas Chainsaw Massacre, of like, well, I hope they hit it out of the park. And sometimes, to me, you get a Friday the 13th remake, which I think is one of the best, or you get, we got Nightmare on Elm Street. And this is not a remake, but in a sense, it has that feel of, coming home, touching upon things we haven't in a long time. So I'm going to give this movie, it's really tough. I think I'm going to give this a 9.5 because I just enjoyed it that much, and it's a movie that I want to watch again, and I loved many aspects of it. I think it could drop down to 9. I have to watch it again. It's kind of similar to Ad Asher, the way I felt about that, where I had some things that were not letting me give it a perfect score, but I felt very strongly about liking it. But I haven't seen Ad Asher again. I thought, oh, it could drop again. Well, who knows? I think this is similar where it could, but right now I feel confident in that because I just felt so fulfilled as a Shining fan. I was like applauding myself, like, yes, like this is what I want. If Kubrick's not around to direct a sequel, give me this. This is working much to my benefit. So, and that's where, The Shining and, Dylan always would bug me about review scores and whatnot. But, like, Shining for me is a 10 out of 10 movie. But it's like that S tier 10. It's like the 10 with, 10 gold stars by it. 10 is not, a 10 can be a great, and I don't think any movie's perfect. But a 10 to me is like, that's an insta-fave right there. Or I just appreciate the artistry behind it so much. The Shining has both those things. But then there are certain movies that are 10s that are just like, oh, and you get the gold star or several gold stars. That's what The Shining has. So 9.5 versus 10. You go, oh, it's pretty close to The Shining. I think it's still a little bit, not a step down, but just doesn't hit the heights that The Shining does, but still great follow-up and also just shows how damn good The Shining is. And to me, it's just impressive that you made just even a good sequel, but I think it's a great sequel. So thank you very much for tuning in this. This was fun. I'm going to be doing some, I won't say solo podcasts in the future, but I am cooking some stuff up here because my schedule next year might change around a little bit, and I don't know how much. I will be on Geek First. I'm always trying to do reviews and whatnot, but there's going to be times where I wouldn't want to hold the geeks back from doing a newscast or review, but then I still want to contribute to this podcast. I still want to keep in touch with you guys, the listeners and fans, and I still want to do this because I have fun. So, and that's still not for a long ways away, but there's been some talks about, some dynamic reunions, and if you're a new fan, you have no idea what I'm talking about. If you're an old fan, you can get excited because maybe one or two fellows might be come back to help me out with the spin-off show. So, thank you very much for tuning into this review. Like I said, if you like to go to Apple Podcasts and drop a review, please subscribe because we got lots of good stuff going on in the near future. Video game reviews, movie reviews, the whole shebang. And in the description down below, you can find the video and audio link. So until next time, I promise you, I'll not be boring.